It started with a trembling voice over the intercom, and a little boy sitting alone in a leather seat that was never meant to make him feel small. 8-year-old Miles Carter had never flown by himself before. It was supposed to be a proud day, his first solo trip to visit his grandmother in Seattle. His dad had surprised him that morning, kneeling beside him with a smile and handing him a shiny toy airplane. "You're not just flying today, buddy," he'd said softly. "You're learning to trust the sky." Miles didn't know that the sky could turn cruel. Everything at the airport had gone perfectly at first. Security guards waved and smiled at him. A kind gate agent had helped him board. He followed directions just like his dad taught him. Quiet, polite, respectful. When he found his seat, 3A, business class, he placed his backpack neatly under the seat, buckled up, and stared out the window with wide, excited eyes. The cabin buzzed with soft conversation. The hum of the engines outside was almost calming. He watched the luggage carts roll by and whispered, "Dad would love this view." He didn't care about the fancy seats or the sparkling glasses on the tray table. He just wanted to see the clouds. Then came the sound of heels clicking on the aisle floor. Sharp, steady, confident. A flight attendant in a crisp red uniform stopped beside him, her shadow cutting across his lap. Her name tag read Linda. She scanned her clipboard, frowned, and looked down at him with confusion, or maybe irritation. "Sweetheart," she said, in that tight, professional tone, "this section's for business class passengers only." Miles blinked, unsure what she meant. "My ticket says 3A, he said softly, holding it up with both hands. She hesitated for a moment, just a moment, then gave a short, polite laugh. "There must be a mix-up. I'll check." As she walked away, Miles could feel the curious eyes of passengers turning toward him. A man behind him whispered, "Poor kid must have wandered in by mistake." Miles looked down at his small hands and whispered to himself, "But I'm in the right seat." Outside, the engines kept humming, but inside that cabin, something cold had begun to stir. What Miles didn't know yet was that the woman questioning his ticket was about to find out exactly who he was sitting in for. The first time Miles noticed something was wrong, it wasn't the words, it was the silence. The whispers. The way people's eyes darted toward him, then away again. Linda returned a few minutes later, her heels clicking like tiny hammers against the aisle floor. Her expression had changed, the polite mask was gone. "All right, sweetheart," she said sharply, "I checked the list. I don't see your guardian's name or any child travel note for business class. You'll need to move to the back while we sort this out." Miles frowned softly, clutching the toy plane tighter. "But my dad booked my seat. He told me not to move till takeoff." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, sometimes parents make mistakes," she said, bending slightly, her voice low enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Now, come on, let's not make a scene." The man across the aisle, gray suit, gold cufflinks, looked up from his tablet. "He said he's in the right seat," he muttered. "Maybe double-check before you embarrass the kid." Linda straightened, eyes flicking toward him with irritation. "Sir, I assure you, I'm handling it." Miles felt his throat tighten. His heart was pounding so hard, he could feel it in his fingertips. Did I do something wrong?" he asked, his voice trembling. Linda didn't answer. She just turned to another flight attendant, whispering something under her breath. Miles heard fragments. "Alone, business class, probably not authorized." The second attendant, younger, glanced at him awkwardly. "Maybe his mom's an economy," she said quietly. "I'm not supposed to move," Miles said again, his voice smaller this time. "My ticket says 3A. It's right there." Linda snatched the ticket gently but firmly, glancing at it. His name, printed clearly in black ink. Miles Carter. Still, her brow furrowed. "That's odd," she murmured. "We don't usually." But she didn't finish. Instead, she sighed, frustration leaking into her tone. "All right, honey, either you come with me now, or I'll have to call the captain to handle this. We can't have unauthorized passengers sitting up here." Miles froze, confusion flashing to fear. Unauthorized? He wasn't a stowaway. He was just a kid doing what his dad said. And as the whispers spread across the cabin, the seat that once felt like an adventure suddenly felt like a trap. Outside, the plane door closed, sealing him in with the storm that was just beginning. The tension in the cabin thickened like fog. Every eye seemed to be on that small boy in seat 3A, the one who didn't belong there. Miles sat frozen, his small fingers gripping the armrest. He wanted to cry, but something inside him told him not to. His dad always said, "Hold your ground, son, even when the world tilts against you." Linda returned, this time with two other crew members. Their smiles were thin, their voices rehearsed. "We're going to help you find a more suitable seat, okay?" one of them said softly. Miles shook his head. "But this is my seat." His voice trembled, but there was something steady behind it, a quiet certainty. Linda crouched down again, pretending to be gentle. "Honey, please, don't make this difficult." "I'm not," he whispered. "My name is Miles Carter. My dad." "We'll have to sort this out later," Linda interrupted sharply. "For now, you need to come with us." A woman a few rows back spoke up. "He's got a ticket, doesn't he? Leave him alone." Linda's jaw clenched. "Ma'am, please don't interfere." The murmur grew louder. Passengers exchanged glances, pulling out their phones. The man in the gray suit crossed his arms. "This is getting ridiculous," he said under his breath. Miles looked down at his toy airplane. His hands were shaking. "My dad owns the airline," he said quietly. Not as a boast, but as a plea, as truth. Linda blinked, then let out a short, nervous laugh. "Oh, I see. Sure he does." But before she could say another word, the intercom above them crackled. The flight attendants turned toward the galley as one of the phones rang. The younger attendant answered. Her eyes widened instantly. Linda," she said softly. "You should take this." Linda frowned, snatched the phone, and pressed it to her ear. A deep, calm voice filled the line, steady, controlled, and cold. "This is David Carter, CEO of Aurelius Air. Put my son back in his seat." The color drained from Linda's face. Everyone went silent, the kind of silence that comes before thunder. David's voice continued, low and firm. "You're harassing my son because of what? His skin? His age? Or because you decided he doesn't look like he belongs in that seat?" Miles stared at the attendants, wide-eyed, as realization hit them. They hadn't just messed with a passenger. They'd messed with the man who owned the sky they were flying in. The cabin felt frozen, every sound swallowed by the weight of that voice on the intercom. "This is David Carter." The voice repeated, calm but razor-sharp. "My son, Miles, is sitting in seat 3A, the one I paid for. He will remain there, undisturbed. Is that clear?" The captain stood near the cockpit door, eyes locked on the trembling attendant. Passengers stared, phones half-raised, capturing the quiet humiliation unraveling in real time. Linda tried to speak. "Sir, But the captain lifted his hand. "That's enough." His voice was firm, almost shaking with restrained anger. "Ms. Thompson, step aside." The phone line stayed open, and David's tone cut through the static like steel. "You represent my company the moment you wear that uniform. And today, you forgot that uniform means service, not status." Linda's throat went dry. She looked down, voice breaking. "Sir, I didn't mean." "You didn't mean," David interrupted, "to question my son's worth because of his skin color? Or you didn't mean to make a child feel small in front of a plane full of strangers?" No one breathed. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. Miles sat perfectly still, his eyes wide but no longer afraid, just watching. Watching his father's voice defend him from miles away, through wires and wind and static. The captain took the phone, nodding slightly. "Mr. Carter, I assure you, this situation will be corrected immediately." He hung up gently, then turned toward the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. "On behalf of Aurelius Air, I want to personally apologize for what just happened. The young man in 3A is indeed our CEO's son, and more importantly, he is a valued passenger who deserves respect." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then louder, rising like a wave through the cabin. Miles blinked back tears. The woman across the aisle smiled warmly. "You okay, sweetheart?" He nodded, voice barely a whisper. "My dad called." Linda stood at the back now, shaking, silent. Her once proud stance gone, replaced by the look of someone who finally realized she wasn't enforcing a rule, she was revealing a prejudice. And as the applause faded, Miles turned back to the window, clouds glowing gold in the sunlight, and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." When the plane touched down, the applause that filled the cabin wasn't for the landing. It was for the little boy in seat 3A. Miles sat quietly, his toy airplane still in his hand, staring out the window as the ground crew rolled closer. He didn't fully understand what had just happened, only that, somehow, his dad had heard him, even from miles away. As passengers began to stand, several stopped by his seat. "You were really brave, kid," one man said, resting a hand on the headrest. A woman smiled warmly. "You handled that better than most adults would." Linda avoided eye contact completely. She stayed near the galley, her face pale, her posture stiff. The captain had spoken with her briefly before landing. No raised voices, just quiet disappointment. And that, somehow, hurt her more than shouting ever could. When the doors opened, Miles saw him, David Carter, waiting just beyond the gate. His presence filled the terminal, tall, calm, dressed in a black suit, eyes locked on his son. The moment Miles saw him, the toy airplane dropped from his hand. He ran full speed into his father's arms. David held him tightly, one hand on the back of his head. "You did nothing wrong, son," he whispered. "You belong wherever you choose to sit. Never forget that." Linda walked past a few minutes later, escorted quietly by airline supervisors. She didn't look up. There was no need for anger. The lesson had already written itself. By the next morning, the story had exploded online. Passengers had posted videos, clips of the confrontation, and within hours the headlines read, "Airline CEO defends his son after staff tries to remove him from business class." David addressed the media only once. Calmly, professionally. "This isn't just about my son," he said. "It's about every child, every passenger, who's ever been judged before being understood." Aurelius Air launched new training programs, stricter policies, and one small, heartfelt initiative. Every child flying alone would now receive a handwritten note from the airline president. Miles kept his, framed above his desk. It read in his father's careful handwriting, "You earned your seat. Never let anyone make you feel otherwise." And from that day on, whenever he looked out airplane windows, he didn't just see clouds. He saw freedom. If you were in Miles' place, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more true, emotional stories like this one.